The most powerful force on earth is a human soul on fire. You have a deep ache in your soul for something more, to come alive, to let your passion pour from you like an endless well. When your passion comes alive, the magnificence buried deep inside of you is unleashed. Gifts and talents you never realized surface as your life unfolds like poetry. You can do hard things. I can show you how. This is Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, where I teach you how to heal yourself from the inside out. Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin, and I have my sultry, deeper voice today. I just flew in from Costa Rica, and boy, are my arms tired. Yeah, that's my Rodney Dangerfield joke. I got in at 2 o'clock in the morning. I came in from Orlando and Matt wanted to pick me up, but I was like, no, let me get an Uber because it's like a big ask, which he didn't mind doing, by the way. I was just, he's a tall guy, his back. I didn't want to cause any inconvenience there. And it's really not a thing. Or at least when I checked the price when I was in Costa Rica, it was much cheaper. And then I got there and I was like, oh shit, I've created my own problem. So anyways, it was fine. I dealt with it. I got home and here I am. So I did skip a week with my podcast. I hope you didn't miss me too much. I'm still here. It was a lot to lead a 2-week training in Costa Rica. It was awesome. The people there were phenomenal. I couldn't have asked for a better group. There was some things that happened in the beginning of my yoga teacher training that if you're listening to this and you lead retreats and you lead trainings, I have 2 waivers that people sign before they come to my trainings. And, there were certain things, a lot of things were covered. There were certain things that I think unless you've experienced something like what I went through, my group went through, you wouldn't even be prepared for it. Someone just basically waking up one day and, having a big PTSD trigger. I do have something about that on my waiver. And this was someone who, I'm not going to say names, but I do want to share my experience because this is my very public diary. And, me sharing this information is cathartic for me, but it's also can help other people. This person had been coming to our studio for months, nothing but courteous, nothing but a gentleman, to everyone at the studio, sweet, funny, giving gifts, helping people that, maybe had an injury and couldn't get their props, perfect gentleman, respectful, and, when he signed up for the teacher training, when this person signed up for the teacher training, I had no reason to not accept them because they were on a path. And, if you've been listening to this podcast for years, or even if you've binge listened and watched, you will know that I started as a coach for those in recovery and a coach for those, I changed my name twice, Thriving After Addiction, 3 times technically, Thriving After Addiction, Empowered Serenity, and then Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, which is what it is now. So, I'm an underdog. I'm a person who has a rap sheet. I'm a person who has a history. I'm a person who was addicted to drugs and alcohol. I'm a person who had an eating disorder. I'm a person who was, wasn't born with a silver spoon in their mouth and grew up, roughly with having to fight for almost everything that I have, and I'm a self-made woman. And so when I see people who have been through different struggles, maybe not the same as mine, I wasn't, I'm not a vet. I'm not, I've had some violence and abuse in my past, but I am, not as much as other people. There's certain stories that people have that, they would come to the studio to me, and I'm sympathetic to that. And I like to see the good in people. And then beyond that, if your character, as far as how you're treating the people in the studio, kind of, is in alignment with our ethics and our code of conduct, and our core values, which are printed all over the wall in the studio, then I'll give you a chance. In addition to that, we'll sign some waivers. So we had a person that was being completely disrespectful, not just to me, but to other people, yelling, lashing out, completely unaware of their impact on the group. And it was jarring and shocking. And, sometimes people have uprisings in yoga teacher trainings, right? If you've ever, had the experience of like a breath work, holotropic breathing, Soham breathing, something kind of intense, Wim Hof breathing, and you have this sort of eruption in you, and maybe you have to process things for a few days. I am skilled at, and I'm used to navigating people through that. I've been doing it for about a decade. But sometimes there are things that come up in people that are deeply seated. And again, waivers, like you say that you're in good mental and physical health, right? You've been checked out by a doctor. I have all this on my waivers, right? And so then it comes down to discernment. And so I used my discernment, and just things came up that really shook my group to where people felt unsafe, and we had to get this person to leave, to where we had to call the police on them. And I know this is a huge, I'm sort of like spilling the tea. I'm not going to give certain details because I don't want this person to be ostracized or anything. I hope that they find peace, honestly. But I do want to share my experience because, again, if you either lead retreats or you're thinking of leading retreats, if you are a yoga teacher and you might have some, sometimes you just can't predict life. So that being said, that happened, and it started taking away from the experience for sure. And so I'm sympathetic to people's personal journeys, but when you start to lash out at other people and you're creating an unsafe space for other people to process, no, sir, no, ma'am, you got to go. You got to go. And I had multiple conversations with this person, sitting down, heart pouring out, to where then I had to like literally call the police. It was crazy. I've never had anything happen like that on one of my trainings, not even close. And it was a huge learning experience for me, as far as, I had a moment where I was like, wow, like my judgment was way off, and I was self-deprecating, and I had to pause and kind of like hang back. And, I got a lot of reassurance, sympathy, and empathy from the people that were in the group. The thing is, once he left, the experience was fantastic. The opening, the sharing, the love, the discussions, the practice. I saw, like, we wound up going from Ashtanga primary and then playing within the structure and then doing Mysore. The energy, the meditativeness, that I saw people falling in love with the practice, which is, as a yoga teacher, if you're hearing this, you're like, yes, like that's the goal. Get people inspired, help them to fall in love with yoga. And I saw that on my retreat and training, and it was beautiful to see them forming this relationship with themselves and peeling off the layers. And so it was a lot. We stayed in this giant mansion house in Santa Ana, Costa Rica, and it was a beautiful experience. And I had some awesome teachers, of course, my partner Matt Murphy, who is amazing at telling these sacred stories from the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana. And it was just like a favorite activity for everyone at night, just to get like a warm cup of tea and just to hear Matt Murphy just kind of go for it and get into it. And then Dr. Stephanie Minter, who is a really good friend of mine, who is just a funny, quirky, beautiful person with an amazing sense of humor. And like the know-how and the confidence to see her present was like perfection. The way that she presented with a sense of humor, in ways with techniques that people could understand, like breaking down the planes of movement in a way that I was like, oh, damn, that's good. She just had so much good information to share. And one beautiful thing that she did was tie together all of the different teachings of Matt and myself. For example, she called the pecs, the bhima of the body, which tied into the Mahabharata. As far as the characters of the Pandavas, Bhima, this sort of like big, strong, like a little bit dopey character. And, she would reference certain things from Ashtanga. She knew the bandhas. It was like a match made in heaven. I was like, excuse me, ma'am, you will be teaching anatomy in my yoga teacher trainings for the rest of our lives. So it was, I made a speech at the end of the yoga teacher training that it was amazing to see people absorbing this information and exploring themselves. And it was really rewarding to see the relationships that formed. Even though the first part of the training was had blips of just things I wouldn't want my students to experience. That being said, I had the kind of group that took that and found the silver lining and looked at what that brought up in us, and we studied ourselves, we studied each other. There was one activity that we did towards the end, which was an activity in Swadhyaya, which is self-study. And I had everyone pair off. We had one sort of quote-unquote triad. I had everybody pair off, and they studied the patterns of each other, right? So I thought to myself, what is the advantage of being away in a beautiful location around each other all the time? How can we make use of this situation and draw it into a deeper study of ourselves and others? And it came to me, I thought, aha, I'll have them study each other and take notes. And then we got together in our little groups and we were forthcoming with the patterns and information that we were able to, discern and recognize. And I think that some people were aware of some of their patterns, and there's some patterns that were brought up for consideration. If you think about that, I mean, it's sort of like if you've watched a reality show before and you get to see these characters develop. And let's assume that part of it's performative, right? Because that is reality TV, right? But part of it is actually real truth of their character coming out. And what do, right? We judge those characters. We're entertained by them. And then we fall in love with parts of them, right? We kind of see the complexity of each person and we see them as a person. And so we had that opportunity in my training, and I thought, wow, next training, we're going to do that from the very beginning. And how amazing is that going to be? Because one of my favorite aspects of leading coach trainings, of leading yoga teacher trainings, of leading some combination of the two thereof, is the deep exploration of ourselves and others, is of recognizing patterns, the samskaras that we have, and then using the tools that are presented, because you've had that insight, to work on it, or maybe to accept it, or maybe just to be aware of it. It was fantastic. It was one of my most favorite activities that we did, and we did quite a few. So the whole experience in Costa Rica, I got to use my new booklets that I typed up, put together along with my partner again, the amazing Matt Murphy. And these booklets they have beautiful pictures in them from the lovely and talented Melissa Robinson, who she's a boudoir photographer, but she's done yoga shoots for me before. And I was able to use a lot of those images in the booklets. So it just kind of, adds to the character and the look of them and the education, which was nice. And I combined the information that I had from me studying in India for over a month before I came back for a week and 3 days, I think, and then left for Costa Rica. So I had all this sort of bundled up knowledge, and it came out, like even the voices of my teachers, even the little bit of head bobble, the inflection that they had, it was wild. It just sort of came out through me, and I was witnessing this information channel along with my own perspective is kind of melted in there. But if you've ever spoken and taught from an inspired channel place, sometimes you can take a step back and witness and be like, man, that is awesome. And I felt like I captured a little bit of India. And one of my classmates, I remember it was like the second week I was there, and I was like, man, I love India. I love how the people are here. I love the high level of critical thinking. I love just the problem solving capabilities of everyone, I said, oh, man, maybe, I was just kind of thinking out loud, like, maybe I'll move here. And she stopped. She said, visit here. She's like, enjoy it. She's like, maybe have trainings, retreats here. She's like, but you should go back and teach everyone about our ways. Teach everyone about the yoga from India and honor it in that way. And I think she was a bit of a messenger for me when she said that. And I smiled and I said, absolutely, I will do my best. And I will respect and honor these teachings that I've learned and authentic yoga that I've learned from my teachers in India. And what I mean by authentic is not to, poo-poo on anybody else's method, because yoga is an expansive, broad, sort of like, this gender fluidity concept. But to be around people who grew up around the language, right? The root language is Sanskrit, of Hindi, of Tamil, of Kannada, of Telugu. And then to be around people who a lot of these concepts have been melted in, and they're aware of it. Now, whether they practice it or not is, right, they're their own people. But to be around people who grew up around it and practiced it, and it's just different. It's just different, right? They are fluent in yoga on some level, right? And I am honored that I can be a container to hold this information and to put my own spin on things, use my own critical thinking and discernment that I've been building up from, studying my health and different things that would happen when I consumed or did particular exercises or having certain foods. And I've been studying my body and the reactions in my body for a long, long time. Having had addictions, having had eating disorders, I knew I didn't want to live with that. And so there's a reason why I engaged in those activities, right? There's always a good reason why we do these things. And so I had to dig myself out of that. I had to figure myself out like a little puzzle. And that is what you do in yoga. Everything from the postures to conflicts that you have within yourself, to mirror images that are reflected back from other people that cause some uprising in you. Yoga creates critical thinking. Yoga, beyond the postures and the 8-limb system, it's a checks and balances system. You're checking in with yourself. How is this making me feel? Maybe ripple outward. How is this making other people feel? Am I being authentic and standing in my truth? Am I withholding information when it's appropriate? Am I giving information to be honest and transparent? Am I trying to keep myself in a balanced state, walking with God, and not overly spraying out my energy? Am I being generous? Am I being kind? Right? Am I being kind just to be kind? Right? But am I also setting boundaries in a kind way? Am I studying myself and others? Am I surrendering? Am I having discipline within myself? Right? So these are questions I ask myself often. And I think any yogi on the 8-limb path would ask themselves these questions. So this training was eye-opening for me in so many ways. Getting to see interactions with people and how that worked. Getting to, experience the dark side of what could happen. And being able to be adaptable and adjust and, take precautions the next time. Yeah. So today is my first day back. I'm going to go to the beach with Matt. We're going to have a sweet day of just cleansing and enjoying and processing, because I worked for 2 weeks straight. So I deserve a day off, but I wanted to give this little sweet note to you, and I hope that you receive it. If you have any questions about any of the things that I do, please feel free to comment on this, whether it be on the thread on the website, or if you message me or email me. I would love to hear from you. I do have a coach training coming up September 16th to the 23rd. If you're interested in enrolling in that, talk to me and we'll do an interview and see if it's a good fit. I am thinking of planning a yoga immersion / maybe teacher training. It would be partial international, partial in person, partial online, and that would be in India next year. So if you're interested in that, I do have a couple of Indian teachers that would be leading along with me, and we would be eating a sattvic diet, and you would be getting emotional processing teachings, as well as the spiritual yoga sutras, philosophy, all of these wonderful things that I incorporate into my trainings, some coaching, because I always incorporate that, because you need to be able to have tools to study yourself and use discernment and all this. And I make a nice little package for you. So we would also have excursions to Chamundi Hills and different temples. And yeah, I get to go to the birthplace of yoga and get to experience it. So if you're interested in that, I haven't put together all the details, but I'm super excited about it. It would be for 2 weeks over there. If you wanted to extend your trip, of course, or go beforehand, you could. And we would have accommodations. We would have a place to practice. Your food would be covered. So and I'm trying to make it affordable for everyone. So if it's something you're interested in, email me, Erin@erincoach.com. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening, and namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me, as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin@erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Thank you so much. Namaste.